immediately staking a claim in the center. This opening gambit aims for rapid piece development and influences crucial central squares. Instantly challenging white's central control, this knight develops dynamically towards the king side, preparing for immediate counterplay. Securing central space, this pawn grab challenges black's knight and prepares an ambitious pawn storm. Opening the path for the bishop, this establishes a solid pawn triangle and prepares for king's Indian-like structures, but momentarily blocks the queen. Developing the knight here builds central influence and prepares to contest key squares. Unpinning the knight and preparing for pawn tension offers dynamic counterplay. Solidifying the center now allows white to develop pieces harmoniously, preparing for a central pawn push while keeping options open. Establishing central pawn presence now confronts white's space advantage, opening lines for piece activity. This ambitious pawn thrust aims to clarify the bishop's long-term prospects and disrupt black's developing harmony. Sacrificing bishop for knight opens diagonals, disrupting white's pawn structure. Creating a doubled pawn introduces a structural weakness, but opens the b-file for queenside pressure. Immediately challenging the center with this pawn thrust disrupts white's queenside pawn structure and aims to seize central space. Opening the central file now grants vital access, but be mindful of the doubled pawn's lingering weakness. Unlocking the central files for potential piece activity, black embraces a slightly doubled pawn structure for dynamic counterplay. Developing the bishop to a more active square, the bishop eyes the king side and prepares for future castling. Safeguarding the king is a priority, initiating development and preparing for centralized play. Securing the knight for central influence and potential kingside attack, anticipating a pawn storm. Expanding the queenside pawns to secure queenside space and prepare queenside play. Bringing the king to safety resolves immediate structural weaknesses and prepares for the central struggle ahead. Unleashing the bishop to its most active diagonal opens up aggressive possibilities against white's doubled pawns and exposed king. Trading the bishop for the knight immediately resolves white's doubled pawns and aims for a cleaner pawn structure. Knight now eyes weak queenside pawns, securing valuable outpost potential. Unleashing the bishop's diagonal power and preparing central pawn support. Centralizing the queen to support the pawn structure and prepare for future queenside expansion presents an active strategic choice. Proactively seizing control of the queenside and restricting black's bishop activity with a timely pawn advance. Re-establishing central influence and preparing to contest the e-file. Focusing queenside pressure while preparing to challenge black's pawn structure. Boldly challenging white's central pawn structure, this push creates immediate tension and seeks to disrupt coordination. Securing the queen's advance and eyeing potential knight outposts, this maneuver prepares for central pawn breaks. Shifting the knight to its starting square might seem regressive, but it prepares for a more active role on the kingside and avoids immediate tactical complications. Solidifying the e-file gains central control and prepares for potential queenside expansion. This maneuver prepares to contest the d-file and potentially create a passed pawn down the queenside. Shifting the knight to g3 aims to establish a strong outpost on f5, pressuring black's isolated d-pawn. Liberating the knight to this outpost targets white's queenside pawns and opens a diagonal for the bishop. Solidifying the kingside pawn structure, f3 aims to provide a secure outpost for the knight and prepare kingside expansion. Unleashing a knight to disrupt white's queenside and gain central influence. Exploiting the weakened queenside pawns, white bravely initiates a central pawn thrust to disrupt black's knight outpost and open lines. Seizing the open file, black immediately challenges white's central pawn structure and creates immediate tactical possibilities. This advance unlocks the bishop's diagonal and pressures black's pawn structure. Suddenly, black's knight becomes a potent intruder, disrupting white's central pawn structure and threatening to penetrate deep into enemy territory. Gaining control of the open queen's file and preparing for a queenside advance is the intention behind this repositioning. Creating a defensive barrier, this move prepares to bolster the kingside against potential advances. Emboldening the kingside pawns, white seeks to disrupt black's queenside dominance and open attacking avenues. Pushing the f-pawn here creates a significant weakness on g6, potentially opening lines for white's queen and bishop down the diagonal. Liberating the f-file for attacking potential after a period of relative positional maneuvering. Reclaiming central space becomes the immediate priority after this piece exchange. Aggressively confronting the center with pawn thrusts seeks to shatter black's central blockade and exploit the weakened kingside. Consolidating the queen's outpost and preparing to challenge the open file presents a dynamic endgame scenario. Reclaiming the crucial open file solidifies white's central presence and prepares for further kingside pressure. Re-establishing the rook on the open file prevents white's pawn push and bolsters black's defensive structure. Opening the king's diagonal and preparing to flood the queenside with your rook. This forced exchange, while seemingly simple, opens the f-file and allows white's rook to dominate the critical central squares. Unlocking the d-file with this capture creates a powerful central wedge. Securing the king on a safer square is paramount given the open files and potential for discovery. Shifting the queen to a more aggressive square, this maneuver prepares to exploit the open kingside and create threats against black's exposed monarch. Securing the queen's escape square from the white rook's menacing gaze and preparing for potential counterplay. Seizing the open file, this thrust aims to exploit black's congested queenside and potentially launch a decisive kingside assault. This captures the queen, but exposes the king to white's centralizing advantage. Finally, white breaks open the long block diagonal, potentially activating the bishop and pressuring black's queenside structure. Seizing the pawn opens the file for your rook, creating immediate attacking potential against the exposed king. Unleashing a surprising knight sacrifice targets the black king's exposed shelter, creating immediate attacking chances. This desperate sacrifice trades the queen for a knight, creating an exposed black king and a powerful white pawn majority. Unleashing a devastating check, white forces the enemy king into a perilous open square, setting up a swift checkmate. King seeks sanctuary on the back rank, a desperate gambit against looming threats. The king's exposed position is now fatally undermined by this decisive check, ripping open the dark squares. A desperate king gambit, exposing the monarch to swift retribution. Unleashing the passed pawn promises a swift, decisive promotion, forcing black's immediate attention and likely sacrificing material for a desperate attempt to impede its advance. A desperate check, as black desperately seeks a way to survive the inevitable onslaught against their exposed monarch. Unlocking the h-file for your king's final stand, a desperate gambit against the exposed black monarch. A desperate king check, seeking a last-ditch exchange to stave off inevitable material loss. Relocating the king to the third rank offers a crucial escape square from the ongoing checks. Targeting the exposed white king, a desperate king hunt unfolds with the monarch finding no respite from perpetual checks. Relocating the king to the h-file offers a precarious escape route from the immediate checks. Unveiling a stunning check, this move forces the white king further into peril, a desperate attempt to escape the inevitable mating net. Exposing the king to such a devastating diagonal attack is the direct consequence of that reckless pawn grab, surrendering all defensive prospects. Exposing the king to relentless checks, black forces white to defend desperately. A desperate king scramble, abandoning safety for a fleeting attack. The king's exposed position on the right flank offers tactical opportunities for the black queen to harass and potentially force concessions. Fortifying the kingside pawn chain solidifies defense against further attacks. Dashing the monarch toward the abyss of checks, a desperate attempt to stall the inevitable regal pursuit. Exposing the monarch further down this perilous diagonal is a dangerous gamble,